If you can get Facebook up, David, you'll get two screens.
I'll just leave it for a minute. It takes a wee minute.
Stop now.
Aye.
Alright, shut down a few.
It takes a wee. Looking to expand.
Stop now.
Yeah, right, sound off.
Okay. Afternoon, Ali. Afternoon, Chris. Afternoon, Mr. E. Good afternoon, audience. Welcome aboard. We'll give you a wee minute for a few years to get on board, and then we'll get into it. The topics this week for conversation in the Thursday edition of the two Davies are some of the big issues of this week today. All right, so we'll get into it. We've got 5 topics of importance to the people of Scotland to discuss between ourselves and you guys. So, good afternoon, Doug. Afternoon, Eddie. Afternoon, Robert. Afternoon, Dodger. And Jane. What we got on Facebook, David?
Anne Aubenlick. Anne's back from Australia. Hope you had a good time, hen. Kevin Camperman rolling. Evening, guys. Mags McLaughlin. Karen Douglas. Nancy McIver. Malin Holmfield Heen. I think that's from Norway. Alan.
Malin's in Norway.
Ruth Hanratty. Harry McLean. Avril Lamb. Avril, how's your cold feet, hen?
That's what happens. You go swimming outside the Parliament, Avril. What a great idea in the middle of December. Jesus Christ.
Did Nicola Sturgeon give you permission to go swimming in her pools at the front there? Right. Stephen Kelly. Neil McDonald. I wonder where I've seen him before. Oh, yeah. Hi, Neil. How you doing, mate? Alan Forsyth. Tommy Gurley. Melanie McLean. Alexander Thompson. Lorna McDonald. There's where we Lorna. Sandra Wallace. Anna Aubenlick.
Let's get this rocking. Let's get this show rocking. First subject up for debate: a royal racism storm.
No, they can't be racist, can they? Can you have a monarchy that's racist? Surely not.
Wow.
Yeah,
the monarchy is the actual base of white supremacists. You know, that was the idea of empire. You know, the colonizer sees himself as being superior to the colony, those who are colonized. So,
well, I brought this up, David. Do you mind if I read it? This from Sister Space, right? Okay. This is where she met Sarah Hussey, is it?
Lady Sarah Hussey.
Lady Sarah Hussey, right? Okay. And she says, mixed feelings about yesterday's visit to Buckingham Palace. 10 minutes after arriving, a member of Lady SH approached me. Move my hair to see my name badge. The conversation below took place. The rest of the event is a blur. Right? Where do you come from? Me, I don't know. They didn't leave any records. Yeah, that's the ship. SH. Well, you must know where you're from. I spent time in France. Where are you from? Me, here, UK. SH. No, but what nationality are you? Me, I'm born here and I'm British. SH. No, where did you really come from? Where do your people come from? Me, my people, lady, what is this? SH. Oh, I can see I'm going to have a challenge getting you to say where you're from. Where did you first come here? Me, lady, I am a British national. My parents came here in the 50s when SH cut in. Oh, I see. I knew you were there. We'd get there in the end. You're Caribbean. Me, no, lady. I am of African heritage, Caribbean descent, and British by birth. You know, well, that's ridiculous. That's beyond ridiculous.
You won't remember, Lady Sarah is 83 years old.
I don't give a what's it.
And she's been brought up all her life in a position of where they believe they are superior.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of a monarch. A monarch is anointed by God and set above his altar leaders.
Yeah.
And as I say, the empire itself was racist.
But this
The
isn't
colonizer always believes that they are superior to those they're colonizing.
But this isn't the words of a monarch.
No,
Although I could believe King Charles saying precisely the same thing, right? This isn't the words. This is the words of a lady in waiting.
Yes.
This is the words of an employee of the monarchy.
Yes, but that employee is also a member of the royal household.
Yeah, fine, but the same, still ridiculous. In this day and age, here we are in the 21st century, and we're still seeing things like that.
That's woman. Listen, I'm not making excuses for the woman.
I know you're not.
I'm telling you who she is. They're all racists.
Yeah.
We're all natives to them. They're born to rule over us.
And especially when you had Prince Philip, who was racist, an uber racist, to use the German, right?
Right.
And that then feeds down to the employees.
Huh?
Yeah. So, and he'll have had probably more to do with the household staff than the Queen did.
I couldn't tell you how it worked. What I'm just saying is that particular class, and remember we are talking about a class system in England, that particular class are racist.
Yeah.
White supremacists. I mean, the English people's greatest hero, Winston Churchill, was a racist.
Yeah.
It's inbred.
Yeah.
It is institutional racism.
Yeah.
And it will never be stamped out as long as these people think they're born into this planet to reign over us.
Yeah.
I can't mind who made that famous saying, but it was about the last king and last priest being strangled by their entrails before we get equality in this world.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just busy on sorting things out of the top, so I'm ready for.
Aye. So is I don't suppose anybody there is surprised. Aye, and you're right, Evelyn. And that is why Meghan and Harry left. They had no bloody choice. The attitude that came from his own brother runs right through that whole family. They're white supremacists.
Yeah.
And you're right, Ali. Churchill was a monster. He was up there with Stalin. He was up there with Hitler. A bloody monster.
Yeah. Wasn't it him that all the ships were loaded with grain in Bombay, as it was called then, right? And one of his aides went to him and said, "Shouldn't we unload some of this grain so that the people here have got food to live on?" And Churchill is the one that said, "No, let them die."
When he was questioned about this in the UK Parliament, Churchill says it's their own fault for breeding like rabbits.
I know.
3 million of them starved to death. 3 million people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely mental. But I mean, as I say, in that particular class system, part of the class system, they are all white supremacists.
Yeah.
And they're all English nationalists as well.
Yeah.
Which is akin to the old type of Russian, German nationalism, or Nazism, if you like.
I've nothing more really that I wish to say about that firm, because that's all they bloody are.
Aye. It's a bunch of gangsters.
The old firm. Forget Rangers, they're the old firm, right? And as far as I'm concerned, it's like there's no right to claim any supremacy over anybody. They are lowest of the low, if that's how they go on.
Wayne's put a comment up. Be honest, guys. 20 years ago, you would have used the P word for those from the Asian community and would have referred to your Chinese takeaway in a racist way also. How does that help your cause?
Wayne, do you want to know something? Yeah, guilty, right? Yes, but I learned. They didn't. I learned. David learned. Everybody else learned. So you can shut your yap on that one.
Listen, societies evolve. As our culture became multicultural, then of course racial stereotypes dropped away.
Back in the 70s and the 80s, I would have been considered as not a heavy homophobe, but a homophobe nonetheless. And I learned, and he learned, and everybody else learned, right?
We all grew up. We all evolved.
Yeah.
And we learned to accept these. We learned to accept these sections of society, as I like to call them, as equals.
Yes.
And everybody has the same human rights. So, I mean, Wayne's got a point. 20 years ago, people would commonly use that language.
Yeah.
It was about 20 years ago I stopped using that language.
Yeah.
You know, he is right.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember there was less of those people around. And of course, we weren't so multicultural then.
And also, whenever I use it, I did not use it in a rough.
He didn't use it he didn't mean it in a derogatory manner.
That was it, you know. So anyway, right, fine, that's done. Wayne, you've had your blooming say.
Listen, he did have a good point. I thought it was a smashing point.
No, Wayne's always the same. He's always the wee twist way. Oh yeah, right, okay, fuck off, right.
Listen, I mean, it's no particularly my cause. I'm a Republican. I'm just pointing out the racism in that particular section of society is rife. And it did used to be endemic right across these islands. But we've become much more multicultural since then.
Yeah.
As societies, we have grown up a lot, especially in the second half of the 20th century and here into the first quarter, almost the first quarter in the 21st century. We are starting to see a wee bit more enlightenment again.
Yeah, and you look at Glasgow. Glasgow is now the most enlightened city regarding the gay community, the LGBTI community. Wonderful. Brilliant.
A wee bit of comedy for us, right? Amy says, evolve, laugh out loud. How does a colony evolve? By ignoring the fact it's a colony, Amy. That's right. That's how a colony evolves. But as a people, we have come on leaps and bounds in the last 75 years.
Wayne.
But if you remember...
Hang on. Wayne, I'm proud to know that I'm letting the side down as far as you're concerned.
Wayne, you've got to think about arguing with the audience. Interaction is called, no arguing. Right? But over the last 50 years, especially since Windrush, it was a wee bit slower, the multiculturalism in Scotland, because of the restrictions we put on the people's movements when they arrived in the UK. But over the last 70 years, our communities have become much more integrated, and we have a much more respect for each other, so we don't use these derogatory tones anymore. But Wayne had a good point. And it's, as I say, Wayne, it's no my cause. It's a topical chat show we're having today, so we're discussing the subjects that are of interest to the wider public, not specifically David and I, because let's face it, we're Republicans and we tend to ignore the monarchy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to move on to subject number 2 for today. Homeless charities warn that more and more people are living out of their cars here in the Central Belt and across wider Scotland, of course.
As a contractor, I've through the winter, I've gone to certain places, maybe a factory or whatever, that I'm doing work over a couple of days. Couldn't get a hotel. Had to sleep in the car for one night when it's freezing cold. And I'll tell you what, that is the most horrendous experience. If any of you have ever done it, my heart goes out to you. But that's it. The difficulty with it is you get colder and colder and colder. You're pulling the jackets round about you. You're not warming up, so you switch on the engine. These people are living in their cars because they don't have money.
Well, right? There's some right crackers a day. Hey, Bobby says lucky they have cars. That beats a doorway. It does, Bobby, but it's still no bloody right that people can't afford somewhere to live. But you're right about sleeping in vehicles, David. And I really worry for a bad cold spell this winter, because if there's kids sleeping in their cars, some of them might not make it through the night. You know.
I mean, you're saying that's a charity from Edinburgh.
Edinburgh,
right?
It was a report about collection of homeless charities in Edinburgh. Shelter and food.
I know for a fact, you know, if I'm talking about contractors here, right? You go to Aberdeen, you can't get a hotel for living on money because the big companies have block booked the hotels. Can't get a bed, so you try and get a bed and breakfast. Sometimes the bed and breakfasts are blown full. You can't get one, right? And in Aberdeen, if you've got to sleep out in your car during the night when it gets down to minus 12 degrees centigrade, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, you know, because I've woken up. I did get a bed for the night. I did get a bed and breakfast when I was doing Aberdeen bus station, right, during the winter. And I woke up in the middle of the night and my head was freezing. That's the bit that's sticking out of the duvet, right? I had to rush and put my big parka on that I use for on site and actually get into bed with the hood over my head, right? That's how cold it gets. And it's like anybody that's going to sleep in their car over the winter, if the temperature drops low enough, it can kill you. You know, you just, you know. Anyway.
Siobhan's saying that funding for the night shelter in Glasgow's been cut. I don't know about it, Siobhan, I really don't. Yeah. But I expect that services right across the board will be cut.
Siobhan, we've got a lad that lives around about us. He runs a gymnasium down the road towards Clydebank. And if the weather gets really bad, he actually he opens up the gymnasium to let people come sleep in it and all the rest of it, you know. Good on him. Good on the guy. Good on anybody that does that, you know. But if somebody's sleeping in the car, then you know you look at it and you go, well, if they've got it tucked away somewhere, you're not going to see them. They're going to have the seat tipped right down. You're not going to see them inside the car. The first people that will see them will be the police a couple of days later when the car hasn't moved and they look inside and they see the body.
But no, it is concerning. We know that homelessness right across these islands is up. It's especially bad in England, actually, and in the southeast of England it's extremely bad. But after 10 or 11 years of the Tories, homelessness is through the roof.
Yeah.
And of course, as we know, with bank interest rates hiking and things like that, people won't be able to afford their mortgages and things like that, David, you know.
This is going to get worse and worse and worse. And I had a debate with somebody the other day there that, you know, their argument was because one of the relatives owned a flat that was rented out, and they were saying, do you think it's right that the Scottish government should be stopping that person from getting the rent? I said, you've got to look at this very, very practically, as any good politician would. The people that own the flats, the single owners of maybe one or two flats or one or two wee houses or whatever, right? They're going to go through a bit of inconvenience that perhaps with a bit of sensible headedness can get sorted out. Or there's the other side. You've got the streets filled with women and children that don't have a house to live in because they've been evicted. What do you want?
Last figures I looked at for England was I think it was 400,000 children living in temporary accommodation.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So obviously there'll be their families, so that would be a winner. And an awful lot of families living in a temporary accommodation.
Yeah, that could be.
Hi Barbara, welcome aboard. Apparently Barbara's just found us. We're talking about the homeless situation in the central belt at the moment, Barbara. There's a new report out for a couple of Edinburgh homeless charities that say that more and more people are actually living out their cars. Now, I remember before we left the EU, we sometimes had a lot of Eastern European workers here, and some of them couldn't find accommodation. They were living in cars and vans and empty factory units, actually.
Yeah.
You know, so it's although the Scottish Government has invested heavily in housing, we don't have a magic money tree to print money, so it's restricted in what we can build each year.
There you go. Wayne Morris is back on it again. Put that up from Wayne Morris.
You're obviously misunderstanding what you're saying. You know, no saying that people should miss out on the rent. Actually, if the government's stopping evictions because people can't pay their rent, then the government should pay their bloody rent.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that anybody should lose out here.
But what do you want, Wayne?
And by the way, Wayne, just so you know, Wayne, there is such a scheme.
Do you want the streets filled with women and kids that haven't got anywhere to blooming sleep for the night? That's just the most obtuse thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's not what Wayne's saying either, boy. You just took it.
It is. Effectively, it is.
Well, he has a point. He has a point. So people need to be made aware of this. Hold on, he's got a point. So let's make people aware of this. The Scottish Government, they run a scheme to compensate small landlords who are in trouble because of the moratorium. So, and Bobby agrees with Wayne 100% that the government stopped people from getting on. No, what the government's doing is stop people from dying in the bloody streets in winter.
Bobby's Wayne's friend.
And as I say, we seem to be bringing in an awful lot of people who want to have a debate with us on these things. There is no excuse for homelessness. None.
None whatsoever.
And when somebody's far down in their luck, whether it be drink, whether it be drugs, whether it be because they were ex-military and can't settle down, whatever, then they should be accommodated and there should be a system that helps them get over whatever problems they've got. But as I say, when it comes to the moratorium on evicting people over the winter, because let's face it, we don't want streets full of people in the winter, freezing to death. There is schemes out there where small landlords can apply for assistance from the government, and it's run through the local authorities. So if any of you are small landlords and you have this specific situation, then go and speak to your local authority.
Yeah.
Because the scheme's there. I actually know somebody who's going through this problem in Airdrie at the moment, and he's being compensated through this scheme because he can't put a tenant out that hasn't paid its rent. Because of the moratorium on putting people on the street. So he is getting compensation, he is getting help.
Yeah.
And he's taking it to a two-tier tribunal before it goes back to the courts or something like that for an eviction order once this moratorium is over.
And if anybody is in favour of Westminster, do you think that the Tory government would be coughing up like that to landlords? No. It's the Scottish government that end up getting involved in a roundabout way to try and sort the things out for these people, right? The most important thing is they've made it whereby people cannot get evicted from the houses that they're renting because they can't afford to pay the rent. To do so would be inhuman. Anyway, right, what's next up on the list? We did people sleep in their cars.
Which seems to have brought about a controversy because some people seem to think that those down the list don't need help. Okay, the health minister's taking a pelting in the news and all.
Yeah, and yet again, we've got a situation where it's a situation that he cannot fix overnight. You know, we've got people in the NHS they're just human beings. They get sick. They maybe decide to turn their living a different way, right? And Humza Yousaf is not to blame for any of that. In actual fact, the guy's done a sterling job on what he's done.
Well, as I say, I feel sorry for the poor guy. He's had to take care of the NHS at a point when elective surgery was suspended for 2 years. Certain treatments could not be administered. There's a backlog in dental health. There's a backlog in mental health. There's a backlog in elective surgeries. There's a backlog in almost everything right across the NHS in Scotland and across the wider across these islands. And we're actually faring better than most the other NHSs across these islands. But it's still an awful lot to try and resolve. And it can't be resolved quickly. You can't just perform 2 years worth of elective surgery overnight.
You could do it a bit quicker if you could ban all private medicine in Scotland, right?
Yes.
But that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. But as far as Holmes and Yusuf is concerned, poor guy, he's been just been put in a shocking position, and he cannot win no matter what he does. It's a no-win situation for him. All he can do is try and get things moving in the right direction.
I have to say, the last health minister played a blinder. She stepped in at just the right time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You know, she guided us through the pandemic, did her job really well, but she's not around there to pick up the pieces. You know, whereas Humza was given that job to pick up the pieces, and once they decided that the pandemic was over, which is not, of course.
Yeah.
You know, so Humza's got the right job in his hands, and but as I've said, the Pravda are playing this up. Most of our experiences, and I mean that to everybody who is viewing, most of our experiences within the NHS, all of us has been probably positive.
Yeah.
It's been over-egged, especially by the Tory party, because they want to privatise the NHS. And as I spoke about in my video the other day, the Americans have now put their demands on the table for what it would take to get a trade deal with the Americans. And access to the health market in the UK is on it, as well as implementing the Good Friday, the Northern Ireland protocols in full as they stand now. So that trade deal with America is off the cards. They're quite wanting to give America access to the health market, as they call it, here in the UK, because as we already know, there's American health organisations running GP practices in England.
Yeah, but that's individual organisations. That's not the American government sorting out a trade deal. That's just American organisations come in and say, "I want to buy that," and that's that's it. That's the way it is, and that's the way it has been for a while.
Yep. So it has been over-egged, and poor Humza's taking a pelting.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not really justified because, as you say, I mean, he is doing a sterling job, but there's only so much you can do with an exhausted staff. Sorry, Ice Ninja's asking what does Pravda mean? It's just what we call it. It's a propaganda machine. It's what they call Russian media, but we're now calling the BBC Pravda. Okay, Ice Ninja.
Could we not get a sign put up on the side of BBC Scotland at Pacific Quay? Pravda, big words, and just that's maybe a nice bit of
protest. Clever on the spray paint can, Davy. Did I just see that in public? Some bugger goes and paints that at the side of the BBC, and we all got a visit for the cops. So, as I say, the Pravda's putting this one up and all.
Yeah.
And they're trying to convince the people in England that the NHS is not savable. They just can't afford that anymore. And internal market bill will see the same thing happen here.
You're slowly but surely getting so up. You know you are. I'm sure that many of you realise that the idea is to make the NHS in England first look extremely weak on a sugary peg, and look, what do we do, and what can the government do about it? And what they're going to do is they're going to rush in at the last moment, just before it all blooming collapses like a house of cards, and say, "We've got it. We'll bring in health insurance." And at that moment, we're done. Scotland's lost its NHS because
Gordon's made a good point here, and that is, in his wife's clinic, the amount of appointments has increased tenfold since they declared the end of the pandemic. And yeah, that's absolutely right, Gordon, because there was people putting off going to minor ailments and things like that early couple of years, and now they've no minor ailments and they need attention.
Gordon, I'll be honest with you. It's like, yeah, I've given up smoking, right? I've given up smoking both for two things: economically and my health. I mean, I was coughing all during the night and all the rest of it, right? Now I'm going to the doctors to try and get things sorted out. And I'm getting referred left, right, and centre. The NHS is working particularly hard for me at the moment. So I cannot say anything better about the NHS. They're bloody wonderful, and we would be damn fools to lose what we've got, and we will lose it if this country remains hooked to the union.
Aye. So, as I say, most of our living experience of the NHS is not what we're seeing in the news. Totally different from what we're seeing in the news. I mean, I'm hearing stories about people waiting a fortnight to see a GP. I pick the phone up and see a GP.
Yeah. Yesterday, my daughter she suffers a wee bit of tonsillitis. Yesterday, I had to pick her up at 2:00 from school. I took her straight up the road to the chemist to get her a spray to try and calm it down. Whilst I was doing that, I phoned the doctors. They said, "Oh, the doctor will ring you back." The doctor rang me back within 15 minutes and said, "David, can you bring her down the road just now?" And I saw the doctor with my daughter within about 20 minutes of contacting them, which I think is absolutely, utterly amazing. That speaks volumes for the majority of the NHS. We know fine well there are little anecdotal stories that poverty pay and drawspring up everywhere about this person that died on the gurney that was taken into the hospital. Look, we know things happen. Shit does happen at times. But for the most part, the Scottish NHS is the crowning jewel of the NHS in the United Kingdom. One wee thing I'm going to say, Stephen McNeil has brought up, who do you think will take over from Blackford? We'll get to that later. We'll get to that later, Stephen. Okay.
Right,
so I'm going to leave you out. Okay.
So, Holmes has taken a pelting for a situation that he's inherited. And but the reason why it is being big up and it's being made a lot worse than what it is in the Pravda, or British Broadcasting Corporation in Scotland, clues in the name, the propaganda machine, is because they're going to privatise it in England. Sunak didn't spend 2 years as Chancellor playing about with American healthcare companies, American health insurance companies for nothing. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Hunt wrote the book on privatising the NHS. Now, the NHS is being defunded and it's being described as absolutely crap so that they can offload it and the people won't mind. And of course, we'll get 71 peers and Tory MPs with interests in healthcare companies.
It's like the year that the water privatisation took place. We were all sold on, because we'd paid water rates down in England before that, right? And then with the water companies took over, we were all told it's going to be a lot cheaper, right? It was cheaper for the first month. And then it went up and up and up and up and up. And that's what's going to happen. The Tory government will bring in health insurance for NHS England. They'll go, we're only going to charge you 50 quid a month for a family of 4, right? The band played Believe It, right? It'll keep going up and up and up and up and up. But Professor Patricia Reynolds, who I was a friend online, I asked her a few years back to do me a wee bit of research on what the health insurance costs in America in UK pounds, or what a family of 2 adults and 2 children pay, right? And that doesn't include dental, and it doesn't include any pre-existing conditions. So if you're diabetic like I am, that's right. It doesn't include anything that's and that family of children would pay £4,000 per year. That's what it sort of worked out as, right? And I went, wow. Now, okay, you can maybe think forward. If they brought out health insurance, they might go, it'll be like the thin end of the wedge, right? They'll maybe go, £50 a month for a family of two, or £100 a month for a family of four, whatever, right? And then it'll go up and up and up, and it'll creep up and up and up. And at that moment, you've lost it. And then Scotland will end up where we go into health insurance, because we're not getting any Barnett consequentials, because they're not paying any money to the National Health Service in England, which would generate that. Sorry, I explained again.
So anyway, Humza really has inherited your NHS at a bad time. The backlog was always going to be there through the pandemic, and it was going to be easy political football for the cuckoos in the nest. But the reason why the Pravda, the BBC propaganda machine in Scotland, the one that gives us our opinions on public services, they're bigging it up because we will be losing it. Simple as that. We're only a few years away. 10 at the most. A decade.
You've all got to ask yourself, do you really want to lose the NHS? And I don't care whether you're in England, Scotland, Wales, whatever, Northern Ireland. Do you want to lose the NHS? Free at the point of use.
It would appear that Wayne doesn't understand how the health system in England works. So we'll put this one up, and then we'll explain it to him. NHS funding in England 2011 at 124 billion, 2020 and now 175 billion increase, far in excess of inflation. Damn those Tories. Oh wait, but I guess he doesn't understand that the money.
Can I do this one?
You do this one. Yes, you do it. But behave.
Right, I will, honestly. Dear Wayne, right, the Health and Social Care Act 2012 made the money follow the patient rather than going directly to the NHS in England, right? So when your Tory leader, whatever his name is this week, when he stands up at the House of Commons and he says, we're giving 175 billion to the NHS. No, he isn't. No. He's giving 175 billion behind the people, individual patients. So when they go to the doctor, and the doctor works for a private healthcare establishment, and he looks at his book and he goes, well, shall I send them to the NHS hospital to do that, or shall I send them to my mates in ABC Limited who do that particular procedure? They might do it inside an English NHS hospital, but they're still a private unit. Oh, I'll send them to the private unit. So the money that's on the back of the NHS patient then goes to ABC Limited rather than the NHS unit. So therefore, the Tory government could pay out what they like, because in actual fact, by doing so, they're moving money from the public purse directly into the pockets of the people that are making money on the private health companies. And that's your Tory MPs.
Now that Wayne understands that the money follows the patient in England instead of going straight to the NHS the way it does here in Scotland, maybe he'll go back on his meds. All right, so let's move on. I think we've done poor Holmes are getting a kicking for a fair bit, but people have to understand the reason why the Pravda is bigging this one up. There's further privatization to take place in England. So let's move on. Over the last couple of days, David, with a couple of interesting polls.
Yeah.
And this will bring us back to the debate about a Scottish plebiscite election or a Westminster general election plebiscite election. Okay.
You want me to give you the stats?
I've got them here in front of me. Right. All right. So the SNP are polling at 41% of the popular vote. Labour are polling at 31%. Tories at 16%. Lib Dems at 8, Greens at 2, and Reform UK at 2% of the popular vote. Alpha didn't poll. So Alpha didn't poll. There was nobody saying they were going to vote for the Alpha Party, but I did predict that Neil Henry and McCaskill would lose their seats. We'll see how that goes over the next couple of years. But the point about this particular poll is it was trumpeted as we couldn't win a UK general a plebiscite general election, because it would appear that the idiots here in Scotland are starting to swing behind Labour a wee bit here in Scotland, because they reckon Starmer's going to be the next PM. And if they think that's going to bring change, they're wrong, but that's beside the point. The people like to vote for winners, so we're told. You know.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the Labour figures, Labour up 12 points on that particular poll. The SNP are down 4 points, so you can say that Labour took 4 points off the SNP. The Conservatives on 16% dropped 9 points.
So they took it off the Tories.
This is effectively telling you that back in the past, what used to happen was that you'd find that people would vote one way in a Scottish election, in a different way in a Westminster election. It looks like we're rolling back to that again. People are looking at Labour as being the chance to get rid of the Tories. It wouldn't matter how many votes we gave Labour. They'll either win off the backs of the people of England or not. And it looks like they're going to win anyway, right? So we have got to be well aware and be telling people, for goodness sake, don't waste your vote on Labour. We want rid of that lot completely. We want rid of the red Tories and the blue Tories, right? And the only way to do that is, if it's a plebiscite election, is to vote for the SNP or another independence backing party, right? So you can see that where the Labour got the 12% from. They got 4% off SNP, 9% off the Conservatives. That's like 13% right there. So it's juggling about. I think it's Labour got it from SNP and Conservatives. The Liberal Democrats, they get 8%. They're down to the Greens, got 2%. They're down 1. So going about there, but it's mainly from the Conservatives that they took it.
A couple of points here, and from the audience. Are the Tories and Labour just changing seats in the Titanic in Scotland? The answer is correct, yes. And the other comment I'll put up is, let's face it, and this is true, the Pravda are giving more airtime to Sarwar than what they're giving to anybody else in Scotland at the moment. So it's a danger that faces us if they go down the Westminster plebiscite election route.
It's starting to look a wee bit like the airplay that Farage got off the BBC prior to Brexit. And, he was on TV probably every bloody night, talking about Europe bad.
Yeah, right? About again, the public seem to agree with me, John. SNP shift to Labour is always no. It's only a 4% shift, and it's no SNP. It's independent supporters, but there is a 4-point swing. What we're talking about is soft yesers, and you've got to remember, folks, there is a danger here. We're in a Westminster plebiscite election. Remember, the Labour Party right now have got their mental cases working on new federalism, which will be nothing of the sort. We've already seen the blueprint Gordon Brown's put out. Vague promises of new tax powers for the Scottish people and the Scottish Government. And a reform to the House of Lords, which isn't going to be reformed. Because Turties don't vote for Christmas. And his name's Sir Keir Starmer. And when he was asked about this, abolishing the House of Lords and replacing it with a democratic elected public chamber, he said, I wasn't talking about abolishing the House of Lords, we were talking about reform. And as we know, when Gordon Brown handed his report out to the hierarchy in the Labour Party, they threw it straight in the shredder. So any big promises that Gordon Brown's latest wheeze comes up with, because it's not been officially trumpeted, although it has been Sarwar trumpet did here in Scotland, but to absolutely, in fact, it was that poor that not even the Pravda covered it. The new offer to the Scottish people to stay in the Union. It was that poor the BBC didn't cover. You had to go to the Labour website to see it here in Scotland. But hey, as I say, the other interesting poll was the one that was released today saying that when the don't knows are removed, and apparently we're down to only 5% of don't knows. So when the don't knows were removed, independence support is at 52%, and the pro-staying in the Union is at 48%. So there's only 5% of the population in the don't know according to this particular poll.
Perhaps maybe you're not aware, you maybe are aware, but in Westminster election, the franchise is different, right? So therefore, 16 and 17-year-olds cannot vote in a Westminster election. Also, EU citizens can't vote. Most of them would likely be a yes, we know that, right? And photo ID rules, which have been brought in, would disproportionately disenfranchise younger voters who are more likely to be yes. So, therefore, David and I are both of the opinion that it should be a Scottish election turned into a plebiscite. And we should be discussing how that is made possible and how that could be made to happen. There are rules within the Scotland Act 1998 that do allow for that to happen. There's call it loopholes, whatever you want to call it, right? But it means that we can effectively run a Scottish election if we so wish. Also, the other one I've been banging on about is that Professor Mark Weller, months back, came out with a wonderful statement that said Scotland doesn't require a Section 30. It can run a legal referendum using UN law. He was the UN's constitutional expert. He's from one of the universities at Cambridge, and obviously very, very well thought of to become the constitutional expert for the UN. But obviously it requires for Nicola Sturgeon to go and ask the question in front of the UN and say, can we do this? Not for the reason of doing it. It's for the reason of getting the UN to put out a statement to the people of Scotland to say that it's not illegal, because you can be sure if we tried to run a referendum under UN law, the politicians down in that place in London would be screaming, illegal! Lock them up! Yeah?
Aye.
Yeah. Alistair Kilpatrick said, I think Angus MacNeil is speaking out about having Scottish journalists. Angus has been going on about this for the past few years because, in his eyes, he said it's the only logical way to go. A referendum is just wrong. In actual fact, you look at history and the way that the majority of the countries that became independent, they did it through an election, or they fought for it, like the Americans did.
Aye. So, what we're doing for time, we better go into the last one. Ian Blackford. Let's talk about Mr. Blackford's resignation, or stepping down as leader of the Westminster Group. What do you make it?
Well, I'm going to make an admission here. I was never a great supporter of Ian Blackford. He was great at making the wonderful statements down the House of Commons. He was great at being interviewed on TV, and he said all the right things. But in my mind, he wasn't a leader. He wasn't prepared to make the really hard choices that should have been made over the past few years, right? And as far as I'm concerned, it's like I hope that the leader that we get this time is up to it. You've got a lot of good choices there. What about wee Mary Black? She's got a wee bit of fire in her belly, you know. We're looking for someone that's prepared to go, bugger it, had enough out. Yeah. And prepared to take all that goes with that, you know.
Apparently there's a bit of disquiet in the Westminster group about his leadership. They've decided that he's decided it's time for him to step down. His statement was quite clear. It's time for a fresh approach. Now, needs somebody with a wee bit more fire in their belly. Who's it going to be? Whoever the Westminster Party decides. They're sort of like a law unto their own, you know.
Yeah. You mentioned Philippa Whitford. She's an absolutely wonderful MP, a wonderful person. No, I mean nothing else. And she, when she takes someone on an argument, she comes armed with a book to go, oh, well, you're saying such and such, but in actual fact, it's da-da-da, da-da-da. And she just keeps on going, proves her point well and truly. But would she make a leader? A leader has to do more than just win an argument. So,
the money is on Stephen Flynn. I don't know much about him, to be honest with you. I really don't. I know he's an Aberdeenshire MP. I don't know what his achievements in politics have been. I don't know how long he's been in Westminster. I think maybe on his second term, actually, because of the 2019 election. Yeah. But I really, to be honest, I really don't know that much about Mr. Flynn, so I don't know what his qualities would be as a leader. And I don't know if there's going to be more than one candidate that runs, or whether he'll just be elected by consent. So it appears he's quite popular with the Westminster group. So Westminster group will deal with the day, you know. But apparently, Mr. Blackford's going to take a position in the independence movement and try to woo businesses out of our side of thinking. He has got a long history in business. We read it out. We had a look at his background in the business world when he stepped down and made his statement. Yeah. And he appears well qualified for wooing the business sector, if he can do it, of course. You know, he is for all intents, he is a Tory. Let's get right down here. Some of the people in the comments here might not know this because they are specifically British nationalists. But the thing that's made the SNP a great party when it comes to policy making is they are a broad church. We have the right, the centre and the left on the SNP because they all have one desire, and that one desire is to see Scotland independent. So there's a talented bunch down there at Westminster. I'm sure they'll sort themselves out. And harmony within the Westminster party will come back, whoever they decides is going to be their leaders. But as I say, MPs tend to be a little onto themselves anyway. We've seen that way the Tory party here in Scotland and with the Labour Party here in Scotland, although at this point in time there's only one Labour MP, as we know, and he's thick as mince. But the Shadow Scotland Secretary, Ian Murray. But as I say, they tend to ignore MSPs. You know, they have a different business to attend to in Westminster than what we have in Holyrood. So, you know, so far party discipline in the SNP has been very good, and I'm sure order will be restored shortly. You know, Ian's taken the decision himself. Obviously, he knows that there's a bit unquiet about how his style of leadership within the party at Westminster. So, as I say, we'll see who is nominated. We'll see if there's going to be a competition or whether it's going to be one person standing, Mr. Flynn, as we're being told. And you know, give Mr. Flynn a chance to see what he's going to do. You know?
Yeah, I just feel that I wish whoever takes up the challenge does well.
This guy's a real troll. I've got a real troll with Mr. Morrison. And apparently, the white paper here was only 65 pages.
All right.
And
Okay.
Davestone Oil, what a pecking idiot. Here, it's your son. And if that doesn't impress you, Wayne, yeah, you had a Good Friday Agreement and all. You had a treaty and Articles of Union. All right, Wayne, 65 pages of white paper. What a troll. Anyway.
Wayne, what year is it? Beano? All right. Okay.
He's probably an Express or a Daily Mail reader, you know, an absolute gammon.
Oh.
You know, 65-page white paper. What a sponge. Mental. But let's ignore Wayne because we're getting to the end of the show. We've got about 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Let's look for
there's one we
comments. You look at Facebook and I'll look here.
Yeah, no, it's just that there's one wee thing that I do want to pick up on. And just bloody well get it open in time for us closing the doors. Following off David's comments about the fact that we have Whitehall Chief is looking at whether to stop civil service work on the Scotland vote, right? I was a bit disgusted with it. I really, really was, right? And I wrote a wee blog called "How Dare They," right? I just read the Guardian article where a civil service mandarin is looking to stop work on a prospectus for an independent Scotland. All good work. Who's going to carry it out? Do you think Nicola Sturgeon's going to sit typing night after night? No, right? She's got a country to run, right? I just hope that similar efforts are made to question why the UK Treasury Civil Service people campaigned on behalf of Better Together as they did on the run-up to IndyRef 2014. It's one thing for the civil service to put to task creating a straightforward track explaining the effects of independence for the people of Scotland, but it's something else entirely for a powerful civil service unit to proactively get involved in a political campaign on behalf of Better Together at a time when several outputs from that unit damaged the campaign for independence by creative accounting. I'll say that again, by creative accounting on their part to make Scotland look financially weak, when as we now know that Scotland commands a massive share of all the UK's natural resources and therefore wealth. If you weren't aware of such goings on, the staff actually had an awards ceremony reported in the civil service magazine called Civil Service World shortly after the 2014 referendum vote, and the link is provided if you look on my timeline, you'll see it in the links there, right, for all to see. I, as someone that campaigns daily for Scotland's rightful independence, I'm completely surprised that the article still exists and is easily found by a simple Google search. In the article, you'll find gems like, as civil servants, you don't get involved in politics. For the first time in my life, suddenly we're part of a political campaign. We were doing everything from the analysis to the advertising to the communications. I just felt a massive sense of being part of the operation. This being recognised at the Civil Service Awards makes me feel just incredibly proud, right? Civil servants, the idea is you do the job of the government, but you are not emotionally involved. You're dispassionate at what you do, right? These people were into it, right? I'm sure you'll agree this was a sickening chapter where huge funds in terms of time, effort and money were diverted and expended by figures within the British establishment to keep Scotland chained to the Union. In fact, it's as bad as the anti-democratic efforts being made right now. The people of Scotland were fooled into thinking their country was as poor as a church mouse by the efforts and subsequent items broadcast on the BBC and others created by the UK Treasury Unit. As you know, according to the United Nations Charter on Self-Determination, when a country in a union with a larger partner seeks self-determination, that larger partner is not allowed to interfere in the internal discussion of that country in such a way, and the UK Tory government heavily breached that charter in doing so. Never mind waiting until we regain our independence. I wish reparations for this right now in opposition to what's been done to the blooming civil service in Scotland, right? And including a rerun of our stolen referendum. Yes, they stole it. And I don't know why, when knowing this stuff was going on, why I should say I accept the result of that referendum. I simply don't, and no one else should accept it either. This was as brazen as stuffing ballot boxes, which we were told didn't happen. Or did it?
Right, anyway, apparently I've upset Wayne and I played the man and know the ball. I do beg your pardon, Wayne. You're obviously no a regular on this show. We do tend to have a bit of fun with the audience. So I do apologise if I've upset you in any way, Wayne. Yeah, I think your comments are interesting, sir. Although David seems to think they're not, but never mind. We had a London bus driver like yourself, Wayne, who was quite contrary to your point of view. We were quite happy with him until he insulted the guest. So you're quite welcome to disagree with us, Wayne, and we'll try not to play the man. Okay, but when you said 65 pages and I had them all there, it was comedy gold, mate. Jesus, come on, give me my credit. You know, I mean, with the sort of research I do, that's the sort of tombs you expect to be lying next to me. So I do apologise for upsetting you. I quite your comments to give us something to back and forward. Okay, with the London bus driver, just don't insult any guests if we're going Wayne and I'll be fine.
Or the money given to the NHS in England.
We did do a bit of banter back and forth with the audience, Wayne. So if I've offended you, that's just par for the course in this show. No, I apologise. I sincerely do. Right, David, we're hours up. I've got to work this evening, which means getting the posh jumper off and getting a work jumper on.
And I'm cooking tonight, so therefore I've got that today. So, anyway, what do we say?
Bye, David.
Bye, David.
Now, remember, folks, if you like this stuff, share. Press the like button, press the bell notification button, press the subscribe button, and you'll get notification when we go online. And if you're on Facebook watching this and you're going to share it on Facebook, give me a couple of minutes to make it public. As you know, Meta has been playing with my reach, so I'll have to change it for friends and family to public after the video has been broadcast. So that's it for us today. Bye, Davey.
Bye, Dave.